Well, good morning, everybody. It is Friday. It's Good Friday, right? Easter weekend. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to kind of have a little holiday weekend. You know, last year at this time, everything was, it was a citywide lockdown. Businesses were closed, everything. So we kind of skipped Easter, I guess we celebrated it, but it wasn't quite the same. So we're excited this year to just remind ourselves of these beautiful spring weather and, family and holidays, and it's nice. So I'm going to be doing some cooking. Shay's going to make some waffles. We're going to have a grand old weekend. So I hope you guys have some great plans for this weekend. I did post, this is a Q&A session, and I did pose a question here on what are the number one stressors that you're experiencing right now. I'd like to talk a little bit about that. Maybe many of you are experiencing the same things, so some of the questions may overlap. But also, I want to cue you into the new articles that were posted this week. Some good stuff. Now, if you missed it, I did post an article on coronavirus and the fallout of that on our mental health. The statistics, guys, with the mental health issues that have come from a result of the fear or just, changes in our lifestyle due to this virus are undeniable, particularly in some of the younger generations, the suicide rates, the depression rates, the anxiety rates. If you didn't get an opportunity to check out that article, head over to drpingle.com. I think it's important to always look at all sides of everything. We have the issues with the virus itself, but we also have a lot of side effects from that. And as a preventative physician and somebody that's looking to preserve life moving forward, I have to say, the statistics are pretty hardcore. Did any of you get an opportunity to read that article yet at drpingle.com? I wanted to tell you, listen to this. So in the last 12-month period, there were over 81,000 drug overdose deaths. Hello, good morning. Which is the highest number ever recorded in a 12-month period. Okay? In late June 2020 alone, just in June 2020, 40% of American adults reported struggling with mental health concerns or substance abuse. Thoughts of suicide were 2.5 times higher in 2020 than in 2018. Reported symptoms of anxiety were 3 times higher than 2019. Over 25% of young adults from ages 18 to 24 had contemplated suicide. 25%. That's 1 in 4. As a mom, yikes. listen to this one, guys. 70% of Gen Z adults reported experiencing symptoms of depression in August of 2020. Mental health emergency visits increased by 24% for young children and 31% for older children in 2020. And there was a 13% of survey respondents reported increasing their substance abuse to cope with coronavirus anxiety. If those stats don't make you go, whoa, I don't know what will. Check out that article, okay? In addition to that, I had some lighthearted stuff that I put in there, which was some top 4 stretches to do at work. Also, 4-ingredient homemade vitamin D gummies. Check that out. You can make your own little gummy vitamins. And what's cool about that is you can adjust the dose per gummy. So depending on how many drops you need, or your kids need, or your husband need, or whoever, you can adjust it and make all these different flavored gummies. Real easy to make, guys. Check out that recipe. And then last night, posted 4 yoga poses for common health conditions. So if you're someone that's looking for some poses you can do at home, check that out. So those were the updates this week at drpingle.com. So thanks to all of you for being here. I see a ton of hellos. I see some questions coming in. Carolyn's concerned they won't force you to take the COVID shot. Yeah, me too, Mandates are hard. I think personally, just as a parent, I noticed that when I mandate something with my kids, they're more likely to be defiant. It's better for me to educate them on why we should do something or not and let them make a decision. So I'm hoping that the same thing happens here. I think you'll actually have more people getting the shot if it's not mandated, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But don't worry, one day at a time. There's no point in worrying about what might happen, right, guys? I mean, that doesn't help your stress. You need to deal with what you have right now in front of you, with the information you have right now, and make the best decision you can. So let's not worry about what might happen. Let's just focus on, right now. I hope that helps, Carolyn. All right, I do see a lot of questions over on Instagram. You guys are jumping in. I love it. All right. So for you guys that are new here, I'm Dr. Tricia Pingle. This is your Friday Q&A. I'm a naturopathic physician. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can within the bounds that I can on social media. Sometimes you guys throw some questions at me that I can't answer because they're too specific. Okay, so I do have to give general answers, but I'm happy to cue you in, give you right resources, what the research is saying, and refer you to further articles and stuff to discuss with your doctor. So that's why I'm here. So nice to see you all. All right. What does it mean to have a fluctuation in blood pressure? Keep this in mind. Blood pressure is a natural, the regulation of blood pressure is basically regulated by the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands say, oh, we need more blood flow or we need less blood flow. And a lot of that is maintained through our nervous systems, our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. Mouthfuls, right? So the sympathetic nervous system is that excitability. You're in the woods, you see a bear, you run. So that could be stress, it could be excitement, anything that makes your heart rate go up. Okay. That also raises your blood pressure, right? To get more blood to the area. If you exercise, you go for a walk, your blood pressure has to accommodate, right? If you're sedentary all the time, your blood pressure has to accommodate, right? So a lot of that is maintained by the nervous system in this intertwining mechanism between the nervous system, the adrenal glands, and your mineral status. So the adrenal glands say, hey, pull more sodium in or push more sodium out in order to accommodate the blood, okay, to raise and lower the blood pressure. So getting to your question, when somebody has fluctuations in blood pressure, you have to look at that. You have to look at, okay, are there stressors? Is the sympathetic output being stimulated at some points and not at others? Are there certain foods that are causing stress to the body that might be raising or lowering the blood pressure? So whenever someone has fluctuations in anything, what I usually say is step back, journal, pay attention. What are you eating? What was your mental status? Were you anxious? Because when you have anxiety, your blood pressure is going to go up, right? Because you're scared of a bear. Right? So, take a good journal of it and look at those fluctuations. Okay. A lot of people, and of course, I always recommend if there's a lot of heart issues, it's never a bad idea to get a good heart screening or see a cardiologist to ease your mind that everything looks okay. There's no defects or anything like that. Once you've done that, and you're looking at more of a functional issue, you have to really pay attention to what's triggering it and what isn't, and then work on the lifestyle modification to change that. Does that help? All right. And does thyroid issues cause blood pressure changes? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Everything's, we're all one body. We tend to break ourselves up into different areas and see one physician for this and another physician for this and another physician for this. And granted, there's a lot to know about the body, so specialists do help. But in general, when you're first looking at something, of course they're related. We're related. We are, all these parts go together, right? So thyroid is a very big driver of metabolism. So blood pressure would be very much involved in that. And stress is a big impactor on the thyroid as well. Cool. Okay. Gummies look amazing. Yeah, so much fun. I really enjoyed that one. 4 ingredient homemade gummies. I mean, you can't beat it. All right. Hello. What is the first thing I should do about my newly diagnosed UC self? Ulcerative colitis, you mean? It's an inflammatory condition of the gut. That's the first thing to think about. So you need to go to an anti-inflammatory diet. That has to happen. You can take all the medications you want. You can take all the supplements you want. And I do have a lot of information on this at drpingle.com. Okay, so I'll direct you there. I'll try to pull up what the article is. But the diet is the first thing you have to do. I've had many UC clients, nutrition, IV therapy can be really handy, making sure you're replenishing the nutrients that you've lost. But you have to have that anti-inflammatory diet. Has to happen. Okay. I do have, I'm trying to think what you would type in on my website, because I actually have quite a few articles on this type of thing, looking at digestive enzymes, to support the breakdown of food, and then looking at anti-inflammatory herbs and supplements to calm the intestinal lining, and then looking at replenishment of bacterial flora, and then replenishment of nutrients. So those are kind of the 4 steps that I look at with any irritable bowel disease, but I do have articles on that. I do have an article on irritable bowel disease. I can't find it right now because I'm looking at it quickly. But I do have a lot of that on my website, and I know that I think even on one of my YouTube videos, I think I do a live on irritable bowel disease, so maybe check that out as well, and hopefully that helps. But yeah, start working on an anti-inflammatory diet today. Modified Mediterranean diet, I have a article on that at drpingle.com. You can check that out for sure. Okay. All right. Okay, I see some over on Facebook, Instagram. Bear with me. I'll be right back. Pass the guac. Yes, thyroid can cause heart racing, and raise blood pressure if it's too high. Yep. Do you hear my dog, Fred? Yeah. My dog's snoring. Piggy. Let's see. She's on the chair. You know, there she is. She's a French bulldog, so, you know, she sounds like a little pig. Hello. Okay, let's see. Can you give a bit of information on chronic gastritis? What natural remedies can be used to treat this? Yeah, chronic gastritis. What that means is a constant stomach irritation in the lining of the stomach. Check out drpingle.com. I have an article on anti-inflammatory herbs and leaky gut, which may come in handy. But yeah, if you were to think of, let's see, there's an article called How I Found Relief from Digestive Distress, the 4 Best Herbs for Intestinal Health. Take a look at that one. But what you're looking for, and they link kind of within each other. So if you guys find one of the articles, hopefully it'll go to another one. But essentially, you want to heal that up. You want to calm it down. So kind of if you had a cut on your arm, like a big swollen cut, and you put aloe vera on it, right? And it kind of calms it down. You can do the same thing internally. Things that do that. There's aloe vera. Make sure you talk to your doctor about that one. Slippery elm, marshmallow root, DGL, which is deglycerized licorice, zinc. There's a bunch of different ones. Also, glutamine in low dose will help regenerate those cells. Okay, so when you have a chronic irritated lining in these mucosal cells, and that could be anywhere along the tract, you have to give nutrition to that area to calm it down. And so a lot of those herbs I just mentioned and the glutamine to regenerate those cells is very, very important. You also have to determine if something's irritating it. Is it acid that's irritating it? Is it a food that's irritating it? Is it stress response? I do have an article on drpingle.com on GERD, on reflux disease, which might not be a bad one for you to take a look at because it talks about how stomach acid plays a role in gastritis. So check that out as well. Read those over, check them out, watch the video. I do have a video on GERD. I'm sure I talked about it. So yes, check that out. And what are my views on CBD oil? My views are good. I mean, I've used CBD oil for a variety of different things. Depending on what you use it for, the type you use it, what high quality, you want a high quality oil, and depending on the condition, it can be very helpful. I've had in some cases where it didn't really help either. And I think that goes for any therapy. You have to pick the right therapy for the condition. But if it's picked correctly, yeah, I don't have a problem with CBD oil. Hello, Ashley. I recently found out that I have Hashimoto's, but was told my thyroid was currently functioning okay, and so not to need medication at this time. Are there things I could do to keep my thyroid in check and keep you off medication? Yes, Ashley, there's a lot. I know that I talk about this in my thyroid article at drpingle.com, and I know I talk about it a lot here. Stress impacts the thyroid. Stress impacts Hashimoto's. Okay, so Hashimoto's, just so you guys know, is considered an autoimmune condition against the thyroid. It's also lifestyle mediated. So there's a lot of research on gluten aggravating Hashimoto's antibodies. So I would definitely move towards gluten-free. There is a ton of research on adrenal fatigue, stress causing antibody development. So in your case, you have the antibody, but the thyroid is still holding okay. So you want to make sure that you take that stress off the immune system. So clean diet, no gluten, no sugars, no artificial colors. I would focus on a lot of plants. Meat is fine, but don't make it the main focus. Really focus on cleaning up that diet, getting daily exercise and stress reduction. Adaptogen herbs such as ashwagandha, rhodiola, phosphatidylserine, well, that's not an herb, that's an amino acid, but you get my drift. Bacopa, Shashandra berry. So many of the things that I have in my adrenal line in the total energy and the total stress support are intended to take stress off the thyroid and to support that immune system. Also, very, very important in Hashimoto's, consider selenium levels. Minerals are required. Most people with Hashimoto's are low in magnesium. Most people are low in selenium. So once again, going back to lifestyle, you have to have a nutritional diet with low or well-handled stress response in order to avoid that from happening. Couple things for you, Ashley. Number one, check out drpingle.com, type in thyroid. I'm sure you will find this. I have a live on this as well. I think it's embedded in the article. Number two, check out my book, Total Health Turnaround. Talks about thyroid, Hashimoto's, and stress response and what to do about it in very extensive detail. Number three, my program, my 30-day program, absolutely is intended to help people in your situation. So check those out, okay? You can find all of that by going to drpingle.com. There's links all over the place. Total Health Apothecary is the direct site, but they're all linked from drpingle.com. Definitely check those out, Ashley. There is so much you can do, and I encourage you to do it. I've seen it make a world of difference when you start managing it now versus wait. Did I lose all of you? It's all quiet. Am I still live? Anyway, great question, Ashley, and hopefully some other people had that same question. Knowing the incidence of Hashimoto's, I'm sure many of you did. Yeah, many of you have it as well. Okay? I don't snore like that. Nope. Piggy does. All right. There you all are. What essential oils can help breathing better? You know, that's a great question. And I want to say that I'm not an expert in essential oils as far as I haven't taken extensive classes in them, okay? And I know that many of you that watch, especially on Instagram, are essential oil specialists. I have a lot of you, and you guys send me stuff, and I really appreciate it. So if you're watching this and you have suggestions, definitely respond to Patricia. But I can tell you some of the ones that I've used more regularly. Piggy snoring. One of the ones I do more regularly is eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is great. Rosemary. I love to put them in the shower. You can put them under your neck. Those are some of the ones that I've used the most. But I mean, to be honest, there's so many different essential oils for this. I'm not thinking of any other off the top of my head. Do any of you guys have suggestions? I know a lot of you are out there. I got a lot of doTERRA reps out there and stuff that definitely would be able to answer that question. But yeah, eucalyptus is probably my favorite for breathing, and that's the one that I bring in when any of us are sick or congested. I definitely bring that one in. No, Fred, I cannot send you that. Sorry. Jamie, how can I lower my C-reactive protein level? Okay, so C-reactive protein is an inflammatory marker. Okay, so what it's saying is that the body has inflammation somewhere. Couple things to consider. One, find the source. Where's the inflammation coming from? A lot of the time, guys, it's simply lifestyle. A lot of the time. Other times, there's something medical there, right? There could be a toxin. There could be a nutritional deficiency. There could be too much stress. Keep in mind that when you're under stress, inflammation goes up. So the first step is to start look at the lifestyle management. Nobody wants to hear it. Everybody's like, oh, really? Oh, I have to change my diet and lifestyle. First place to start, guys, exercise and dietary changes will lower your CRP probably almost all the way, if not completely. If there's still a little bit of an elevation there, you need to start thinking, okay, do I have an underlying immune disorder? Do I have an excessive in toxins? Is there some sort of stress on my body that I'm not paying attention to? Stresses are internal as well as external, guys. So it could be, like I said, it could be a nutrient deficiency. You could be low in B12. You could be low in magnesium, and that could cause stress on the body and cause the CRP to go up. You could have Hashimoto's, right? We were just talking about. So you need to look at why. You always need to find the why. Never going to hurt to clean up that diet. Once again, a modified Mediterranean diet. I love plant focused diets in general for CRP management, and exercise. You got to get things moving, right? If you think of inflammation as like a swelling, like something's getting stuck in the body, how do you get that out? You got to move and you got to eat right, right? It's the answer nobody wants to hear, but the answer that's 100% correct. So I'm going to throw that one out there. You're welcome, Ashley. Okay. So hard to know where to begin. I appreciate it. Yeah. Ray, I hear ya. And you know what? Ulcerative colitis is very manageable. You just have to get to that point. It's definitely a lifestyle change. But once you figure that lifestyle change out, it is well manageable. Okay. So I would suggest, if you have any sort of IBD, to find a naturopathic physician or functional medicine doctor to work with to get you to that level. I think some of our skill sets can take that so much farther, unfortunately, than the conventional model when it comes to any IBD, which is celiac, Crohn's, and ulcerative colitis. It is in our wheelhouse to do that. We're very much trained in it. We very much understand what's going on and the nutritional deficit that comes from that. So I think naturopath and functional medicine doctor would be a great choice for you if you have one in your area. Okay. Food allergies and sensitivities also drive IBS. Yep, exactly. Thank you. Thank you, doctor. Yeah. So when you're looking at, anytime that you have, it's interesting because food allergies can cause inflammation and IBS, but IBS and stress can cause food allergies. So you end up in this cycle. So you have to look at everything holistically and go about it one at a time, right? One thing at a time. Is L-Glutamine safe to take long-term? We're talking in low dose or in high dose. So I've used it fairly long term in people with leaky gut and other intestinal disorders in the low dose. So looking at like 3 grams a day. I know that a lot of people for muscle building and muscle impact take it in higher dosages, like 20 grams a day. I wouldn't recommend that for long term. In low doses, when used appropriately, it's fairly safe. Now, with that said, everybody's different. If you have a lot of neurotransmitter imbalances and certain ages, like I know the pediatric population, it's not always safe long term depending on the age and the situation. So definitely one to check with your doctor on. But in general, in that low dose, it's not an immediate toxicity. You do pretty well with it. You can also get glutamine from bone broth. If you guys are looking for a food source of glutamine for the gut, that's why people recommend bone broth so heavily, okay, is because it's a great, fantastic natural source of glutamine. Okay. Well, good morning. Ambitious Navajo. I like it. I like the ambitious part. Juicy, how do you change the way you internalize stress or your parasympathetic stress response? That's a great question. And once again, I did develop a program for that to help you guys. This is why I'm here, is I want to teach you. How do you change the way that you internalize the stress? And it comes down to your outlook. It comes down to your ability to reframe a situation. It comes down to the ability to meditate, the ability to trust, and to not let that anxiety-ridden part take over. It's training. Just as you would train for a marathon, you have to train your brain to put up boundaries. The problem, in my opinion, the reason why this is becoming more and more difficult, and part of the reason, as I was talking earlier about how coronavirus caused a massive surge in mental health problems and anxiety, is we are constantly giving ourselves these blue screens and stimulation all day long. So our brains are now being trained to scroll, to like, to comment, they're being trained to have emails pinging over here and the phone pinging over here and, this over here. So everything's, pinging, right? So it's training our brain to be pinging all the time. It's training us to be alert all the time. And unfortunately, what that does, guys, is it leans you more into that sympathetic state. So when something little comes along, my son broke a plate this morning. 10 years ago, I probably would have flipped out. This morning, I was like, well, guess we'll buy a new plate. It's not the end of the world, right? Because I've had to train my brain to not let those little things bother me. I have many friends that would have flipped out over that, right? Patients too, or like, a bad phone call or something someone says to you, and it takes over your entire being, okay? This is something we're training our body to do. We're training our body to base our worth off of who likes us, who doesn't, who comments, who follows, right? Who cares what you're doing for Easter? Like we're starting to base, and we're training our kids to base their self-worth off something that isn't real, that requires constant pinging and scrolling. And that's causing more adrenal fatigue, and that's causing more anxiety, and it's causing more depression, and it's causing more thyroid disorders, and it's causing more gut disorders, and it's causing more cardiovascular disease, diabetes, anxiety, depression, suicide, drug abuse. We can't keep doing this, guys, right? So how do you train yourself? That's why I'm here. That's why I've created my book. That's why I wrote my book. And I wrote my book originally in 2013. It was released in 2014. I saw it happening back then, and it has literally like quadrupled since then. And then released my program, same thing. You have to learn how to reframe your body. It's right here. That's the answer. And then reducing the physical stress on the body is very important as well, because the body doesn't see the difference between physical stress and emotional stress. It just sees it as stress. So that's why clean diet is so important. That's why daily exercise is so important. That's why water is so important, so that the body's physical nutrition is good, so that doesn't add to the stress of all this scrolling over here. Does that make sense? So you got to look at it from how to minimize external stressors, how to minimize internal stressors, so that when an external stressor comes along that's out of your control, a parent dies, you get a divorce, you lose your job. So that when that comes along, your body is more prepared to handle it. Because right now, if you're constantly in this excitable state, it's not going to handle it as well, and it's going to cause detriment to your health. That was a very long answer, but I hope it rang true to a lot of you. Do any of you get that? Does that ring true to any of you? Am I crazy? That's what I'm seeing. As a mom, it breaks my heart, the self-worth thing in particular. Their worth should not be whether or not people follow them on YouTube. So we have full control over what we allow in. We have control over who we talk to. We have control over who we allow to penetrate our emotional wall. So choose wisely who you let in and who you don't. Okay? Does that help? Breathe Essential Oil by doTERRA. Thank you, Pass the Guac. So there you go. I knew some of you would know. So it's called Breathe. I'll have to look that one up. Ambitious Navajo, when you take vitamin D3, should we be taking another vitamin to balance it out, or how does it all work out? Yeah, I mean, in general, nutrients should be well balanced. Vitamin D plays a role with calcium and magnesium. I usually recommend that magnesium's going in. A lot of people take it with vitamin K. The real clue with vitamin D is get your levels screened. Find out what your deficiency is, if there is one, and then choose what you want to do. It's not everyone should take it. If you already have really good levels, you may not need to, and you may not have to worry so much about balance if you're taking low dose every day. But yeah, if you're taking high dose, you do have to pay attention to calcium and magnesium and vitamin K as well. Okay. Great question. I take metoprolol for hypertension, beta blocker. Yeah, do you know what a beta blocker does? A beta blocker blocks sympathetic output. So think about that. When you choose a drug or a pharmaceutical for a problem, particularly in blood pressure, we have these different classes of blood pressure medications. Bear with me here, guys. I swear, I'm coming to a good point here. So you have different classes of medication. You have sympathetic beta blockers. You have calcium channel blockers, right? You have things that modify aldosterone in the adrenal gland. You have different choices. The one your doctor picks is based on the reason why your blood pressure is going up, right? Or it should be. So if you're on a beta blocker, that means that most likely your hypertension is related a lot to a stress response, to a sympathetic response. I love it when that's the case, because you can actually change that. You can actually work towards changing that by changing the way that you react to stress. And often that levels the blood pressure. Does that make sense? So beta blocker means it's blocking your sympathetic output. Unfortunately, that's also stressful, because if you're in the woods and you see a bear and you can't run because your sympathetic output's being blocked, what's that going to do to the rest of your body? Right? Okay. How can I prepare my body, supplements, vitamins, and minerals before and after a vaccine? That's a great question, Laura. And I don't think we have enough data for me to, in general, say, this is what you have to do. There's no set protocol. However, what I can say, and what I've told my patients, is make sure that you've been taking care of your body to, give your immune system the best chance against COVID. I would figure those same measures that you're doing against COVID would also help with the vaccine, as far as screening for vitamin D levels, making sure that your mineral levels are great. There's a ton of research on zinc, vitamin C, plant-based diets, low stress. I think that if your immune system is well supported, that's about the best that you can do. I do know, and this would not be my expertise, so I can't give a recommendation. You might be able to find something online. I'm sure some of my colleagues have probably put something out there, but on homeopathy before and after vaccines in general, I know there are some homeopathic remedies that some people recommend. I don't have any experience with it, but you might want to check that out. I'm sure, I don't know if any of my colleagues are out there, but if you have any suggestions on what those are, throw them out there. For me, I think protecting your body in general against any illness is always an important thing, and that it would be the same for the vaccine, right? So, but I'm going to clarify, there's no set protocol, there's no set research out there on that yet. Hopefully we'll gather data and come up with something. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Kimberly. What could cause you to cough up thick, yellow-green phlegm every morning? I'm not sick or running a fever, and I've had this for over a year. Yeah, I would definitely see a pulmonologist for chest x-ray, making sure there's nothing in there that could be causing a problem. Obviously, allergies can cause that type of thing as well, but you'll see it wax and wane. So I would definitely make sure there's nothing physical going on in there in particular, and find out the reason why it's happening. And then when we find that out, it's easier for me to give you a recommendation. But I would absolutely have a chest x-ray on that one. Just make sure that there's nothing that could be causing a problem in there, and go from there. That's a pretty detailed question. That's a hard one to answer over social media, but definitely get a chest x-ray, okay? Okay. Wish teens could train brain to not sweat the little things. Me too. I think a teenager in general sweats the little things, but then when we add the social media component to it, we take it to a whole nother level. I was at a game last weekend, and there was a little child. He must have been 2. And he had his mom's phone. And, and you see that, whatever. You got to do what you got to do. A lot of times kids are watching a show on the phone or whatever. But he was literally on YouTube scrolling. Wasn't watching anything. Was just scrolling. And I thought, oh, that little brain is being trained for instant dopamine gratification constantly. Every time he scrolls. Bing, bing, bing. It's like a hit, right? Anyone who's been addicted to drugs, gone through addiction therapy, gambling therapy, or any, overeating anonymous or anything, knows that there's that dopamine trigger of it's a hit. So he scrolls up, he sees the picture, hits that brain, scrolls again for another one, scrolls again for another one, right? And yet we're seeing addiction and drug abuse on the rise. So I do worry about that. So, me too. Anyway. Well, Fred, I'm sorry you don't agree. Hello, Linda. How are you? Good morning, Lynn. June asks about cardiologist suggested beta blocker because of anxiety. Right. So what we were just talking about with the blood pressure and the beta blocker, right, due to anxiety. Anxiety-induced blood pressure, often you're given a beta blocker. So think about that. How can you change your response to stress, right? How can you change it so that your body doesn't have that reaction? Want to learn more about that? Check out all my articles on adrenal fatigue. I actually have an article on blood pressure. B vitamins are highly regulated in blood pressure. Most people with high blood pressure are deficient in B vitamins, especially methylated ones, and stress response, adrenal support, learning more about that. Check out my resources so you can learn more about it, so you can talk to your doctor about incorporating some of that stuff. Thank you so much, guys, for the stars. You guys are sweet. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I truly appreciate it. Teresa and Fred, thank you so much. Sophia, hello. I'm coming back, Instagram. I just have a lot of questions on Facebook I missed. Dana's asking about what is the trend on thinking about trauma and CPTSD? Do you mean PTSD? And correlation in physical symptoms and chronic pain? That's a very significant direct question. I'm trying to think how to answer that. The trend on thinking about trauma. Are you talking about in PTSD and how that manifests as pain? Yeah, like, chronic fatigue syndrome, for example, fibromyalgia, highly linked to the serotonin dopamine pathway, highly linked to neurotransmitter changes in the brain. When your body is under stress, when it's had a trauma, not only does it impact, do you revisit that trauma in your brain quite a bit, right? Causing more internal stress, but all of that stress has an impact on your gut. Okay, so if you're running from a bear all the time, whether that's revisiting trauma or working through trauma, right, and you're running from a bear all the time, your digestion slows. When your digestion slows, that has an impact on your gut flora. When your gut flora is imbalanced, maybe you get infections and you do antibiotics, or maybe it's just stress-induced alone. When your gut flora is imbalanced, that feedbacks and impacts on your brain. Okay, it impacts on your serotonin production, your norepinephrine, levels, right? And that then manifests itself in a pain syndrome. So there's a very strong correlation between that. I also see a ton of nutrient deficiencies that come from stress and trauma, magnesium being one of them. Probably one of the number one deficiencies in fibromyalgia patients is magnesium. Okay, so looking at the result of the stress and the fallout of the stress is what causes, honestly, guys, causes probably the majority of our problems that we have here, probably in our country, but definitely in America. And when I sat out and I wrote Total Health Turnaround in 2013, I was sitting at a coffee shop. I had been approached to write a book on stress, and I literally had no idea what to write. I mean, I knew what I knew in my head, but I had never written. I had never sitting down and said, okay, I'm going to write something out. And I had a napkin, and I still have that napkin. And I wrote a diagram that basically started with stress and related it to the top 10 medical conditions in our country: cardiovascular disease, cancer, mental health, thyroid disorders, also went as far as hormone irregularities, gut conditions, that type of thing, and found that they all related back to the stress in some way, whether that was through a resultant nutritional deficiency, whether it was through just direct cortisol stimulation, but they all went back to cortisol. And that's where that book came from. That was my aha moment. I don't know if you guys have ever had that moment where you're like, oh crap, like that's it. That was my moment where I sat back and said, whoa, we are missing something here, especially in our country. We are missing the stress component. It plays a role in every single condition. So PTSD, pain syndromes, no different. Does that make sense? Work is my biggest stress, but I'm older and single, so I can't leave. Well, how you interpret that stress and who you allow to push you in certain ways and the boundaries that you set, you 100% have control over. I realize that not all of us like our lives at times. Many of us have jobs we don't like. People may have spouses they don't like. How you let that impact you is what I'm talking about. You can't always change the external situation, but you can change the way that you internalize it, the way that you look at it. You could look at it as, well, this is the situation I'm in. I have other wonderful things to be thankful for. I'm going to set my boundaries on what I won't and won't do. And I'm going to focus on other things in my life that bring me joy. And I'm going to try to stay positive and forward. This is where I am at this moment in time. This is what I'm working towards. Maybe you set a goal to work towards so that this is a temporary situation for you. It's you know what I mean? There's a bunch of different situations of which you can change. We can't always change the stress, but we can change the way that we interpret the stress. Yeah? Sandy, I think, was the one that said that. You got that, Sandy? You with me? Okay, breathing exercises. Lyme disease, naturally, pass the guac. I'm not an expert in Lyme disease. I mean, I could say there's so many different things. I think I could spend all day talking about it, but I don't know that I'd ever really give you a direct answer. Definitely nutritional support, immune support, and there are definitely specialists who do that, and they know more than anybody else. The problem is it can be misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, overdiagnosed. So the diagnosis is important, and looking at other factors with it are really important. Breathing exercises, thank you. Yep, breath work. We do not breathe when we're under stress at all. Breath is what gives us oxygen, right? Breath and water. Like my new glasses? I bought these the other day. I love them. Did some shopping. How essential is it to take vitamin K for atherosclerosis? That's an individualized question. Depends on the extent of the situation. Is Maca good for hormonal imbalance? Thermography results showed high levels of estrogen. I find when I've given Maca in a lot of situations, it's raised estrogen or testosterone. So do keep that in mind. I think if you're trying to clear estrogen, you look more to cruciferous vegetables and extracts from cruciferous vegetables like indole 3-carbinol, DIM, and calcium D-glucarate. Talk to your doctor about those three. Indole 3-carbinol, DIM, and calcium D-glucarate. I'd look more towards that than I would Maca. Okay, I know what you meant. I know what you mean. My grandkids are the same way. Yeah. Love my methylated B complex. Thank you. So do I. It's our fight or flight reaction, and it's a lot. It's terrible for us. Yes, but we have control over that. Once again, we got to train it. Reframing is really important. I know I'm running low on time. You guys have 1,000 questions, but I actually had something pop up in my personal Facebook feed today, which was my mom when she had cancer for 12 years, almost 13 years before she passed. But in the last year, the symptoms kicked in. And one of the first symptoms that she had was she lost vision in one eye. And she was in the hospital, and the pictures that popped up were her in the hospital with an eye patch on, and Shay at the time was about 4 years old, and she was pretending to be a pirate with him, and she was laughing, and she was very optimistic, and she was very open. Meanwhile, she's in a hospital bed with no sight, being told she's going to start chemotherapy, that it's a very aggressive cancer at this point, that it's likely hit the brain. And there she was, just being in the moment with my son. And the pictures were of her smiling and gratefulness and joy. And if anyone had an opportunity in that moment to be sad, it should have been her, right? But she didn't. You can learn a lot from people like that. Some of the things that we feel are really detrimental in the big scheme of things, if you're alive and you're well and you can go about your life, that's something to be very, very grateful for. And how you reframe that is very, very, very important. I think if you know anyone in your life who has survived cancer, talk to them. Those are the people that I take inspiration from. Any of you out there that have recovered yourself from cancer, you are incredibly influential. You are so inspirational, and you have an ability to talk to people and relay a sense of gratitude and teach people how to reframe. So use that gift, because that's probably one of the most humbling processes to go through. And there are other diseases, of course, that do that as well. But I know cancer is so prevalent. Finding somebody that has gone through that to help you reframe is very, very, very important. So just remember that, okay? We have to train our brains to find the positive. It's called reframing. I do have an article on that. Check it out at drpingle.com. It's simple. It's just every day. Oh, so-and-so made me mad. They just made me mad. Well, what was the good of the situation? And what's the point of holding on to it? Why do you hold on to that anger? Why? What's it going to do for you? Other than just make you more angry. We're in an angry society right now. I don't see the benefit. I don't know what people are so angry about. Just let it go. Focus on what you can do that brings positivity to somebody else's life. I think if I raise my kids every single day, if Tyler and I at the end of the day can say our kids walk into a room and bring positivity to somebody else, we've done our job. Okay? Think about the positive you can do for somebody else. And if you're going through a hard time, help someone else. Yeah. Many amazing topics and advice today. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Do I believe in chiropractic as a part of natural healing? Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I think many times we're out of alignment. I think that ultimately you have to train those muscles to go back in alignment, though. I think being dependent on chiropractic for the rest of your life means that we're not getting it under control, right? I think that chiropractors can be ridiculously helpful in getting you back in alignment, teaching you how to build those muscles, and giving you tools physically to stay that way. My hip used to come out of alignment all the time, and now that I've done a lot of Pilates, it doesn't do that anymore, right? Because I've strengthened the muscles around it. So a good chiropractor can be worth their weight in gold if you have one, because they'll teach you how to fix that, right? Okay. Good information, unbiased information on the vaccines. Yeah, you're not going to find unbiased information on vaccines anywhere. Sorry. I don't know which one you should get. I wish I could tell you, Laura. I really don't know. Which one? People are like, which one would you get? The Johnson & Johnson or the Moderna? I'm like, well, which one's available? I don't think you really have a choice to choose, right? At this point, vaccines are a tough issue. I believe vaccines should be a personal choice, but I think you have to pay attention to the entire situation and make a valuable choice. And I think if you're given the proper education on both sides, you make a decision, you go with it, whether that's for or against. You do what you have to do for you, your family, and your others, your sanity. I have many people that are getting it because their family gives them so much pressure to get it that they won't get together with them unless they get it. Well, that's a decision you got to make, right? Abuse in the toddler stage that continued to 36. So complex PTSD because of length of time under stress results in chronic pain. Right. Exactly. And I think there has to be that's a very multifactorial treatment plan, right, Dana? So you've got the mental health aspect of it that has to be handled because that's a huge amount of trauma, right? And then as that gets under control, you replenish the flora, you replenish the nutrition, you replenish the outlook, you give tools to look at life in a different way. The pain will get less, but they're related, is my point. My stress levels are high again. I had this problem before and it got better. Now it's popping up again. I'm prone to panic attacks. I was in a car accident in part of November. Could it be traumatic syndrome? It could be. Once again, this is training. You got to do it. You got to do it. This is training for your brain. Every day you have to say, I'm going to take 10 minutes and I'm going to train my brain out of this cycle. Takes an incredible amount of discipline, but is absolutely possible. Fred thinks clonazepam is an anxiety saver. I disagree, but it can be useful in some situations. Did I get the vaccine personally? No, I have not. I had an opportunity to. I'm a healthcare provider, so I could, but at this time I'm not. There's multi reasons into my decision. Doesn't mean I'm against it. It just means that for me, where I'm at in my life, and weighing the information based on what's the best decision for me at this time, I chose no at this time. I don't know what I'll choose 6 months from now. What all does bromelain capsules help with? Okay, I got to wrap this up here slightly. I know I've been on for a long time, but you guys have been great. What fabulous questions. You guys are so great at bouncing off each other's questions. I really appreciate you. What does bromelain capsules help with? Regular pineapple tingles in her mouth. Yeah, so bromelain are from pineapple, and it helps with the breakdown of food, but you don't have to use bromelain. You could use papain from papaya. You could use other digestive enzymes that are not derived from pineapple. So if someone's allergic to pineapple, kind of hit or miss on whether or not they'll react to bromelain, but you don't have to use bromelain to do that. You could use other enzymes that are formulated on the market that are pineapple free. So that's probably where I'd go. ER nurse pushing through life with ignoring all the abuse. Yeah, it's hard. ER nurse is a very stressful situation, right? At times, luckily I don't have that high stress impact from my job. Being a concierge doctor, I have a little bit more freedom in my schedule. But when I was in med school and I was doing 12-hour shifts and I was seeing patient after patient and I was in school and I had a young baby, and I was just trying to make my ends meet because you can't work while you're in medical school. You just can't, and trying to do all these types of things. I had to stop often and say, what's my ultimate goal of doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I here? And it was to help others. And I had to keep reminding myself my overall mission and why I was there so that I could be at peace with it. And I think that's what got me through. And so I think if you're someone who chooses to work in the ER, you choose there for a reason. You choose there because you're trying to do a service, right? So maybe they need to focus a lot more on why they're there why they're doing that job. And if they don't have passion for it, then, you know, that's another situation. But it's hard with that trauma. I hear you. Sophia's asking about vegan with low white cells. You know what? I've had some people who have a really, really low, or like just barely out of range, low white cell count as a baseline. So I would talk to your doctor about that, about whether it's a result of the vegan lifestyle. I mean, I wouldn't think so, or if there's something else going on, or if you're just naturally on the lower end. Because, you know, those ranges, they take a range and they cut off the top 20% and the bottom 20%, and they call that the range. So if you're just like 1/10 of a point below normal and you're always there and it's not moving around, it's less worrisome than if it's all of a sudden dropped there. So I would definitely have your doctor look further into that. And the breakdown, when you do a blood count, just so you know, when you have your doctor check a blood count, it looks not only at the total white blood cells, but it also looks at the breakdown of the white blood cells. So that would be another thing just to look at and see if there's a certain blood cell that's low, or if it's overall. Those are all different areas of interest with low white blood cell counts to look at. Okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Susan, for the 50 stars. I so appreciate it. Thank you, hon. Thank you, Sandy. Hang in there, girl. Gretchen, thank you. Helping someone else is so healing. It's true. You know, you're either a healer or you're not. I'm born to be a healer. I think as I've gotten older, I've learned that. I think in my younger years, I more worried too much about myself and not so much about healing others. So I'm happy to be here. Yes, check that out. Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you for the stars. You guys are so sweet. This new star thing's kind of fun, but I really, really appreciate it. Yoga, I'm just kind of scrolling because I'm at the end of my time. See if there's any big ones here. My brother and I are not getting the vaccine. Read about adverse info. Yeah, there's definitely adverse reactions to them. There's also people that do fine. I mean, once again, risk versus benefit, and this goes for any vaccine. I'm not just talking COVID. This goes for any vaccine. Risk versus benefit. On yourself and in the collective people around you, what's the best decision that you make for yourself? What is the recommendation for taking digestive enzymes before, after, or with meals? So many people change their recommendation on that. I like them at the beginning of the meal to start stimulating the juices, particularly if they have hydrochloric acid in them. I usually say take it right as you're taking your first bite. Other people say take it at the end of the meal to help break it down, but I figure why not start right at the beginning, okay? You don't remember until after you've eaten. Yeah, that happens. And then you take it then, right? Okay, great. Everyone's saying thank you. Thank you. You are so welcome, guys. Hey, I want you to have a great Easter weekend. I'm really excited. I'm going to go to my Pilates class. I'm going to shut off my phone after that. No scrolling for me. And go spend some time with the kids because they're home today. And Phoenix, I mean, oh my gosh, April in Phoenix. If you've never been to Phoenix, come with everybody else in April. We pretty much have an influx of people in April for a reason. It is absolutely stunning. So I'm going to get out and take a walk today, which will help support my cardiovascular system, my stress response, my mood, and maybe have the kids come along with me. Just to kind of start the weekend off right. So I really hope the Easter Bunny makes an appearance at your house this weekend. And you guys have a great weekend. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye now.